One of the things you are going to learn from my channel is what to do when you make a mistake, and this video is a typical example of it. So if you are interested, watch till the end so you can learn from this video. But first, let me start by introducing myself. Hi, my name is Lillian of Lillian Fashion Lounge, and I talk about everything fashion, pattern drafting, physical and online tutoring, and many more. So let's get started. So these are the materials that I am going to be using for this tutorial. Now the first thing that we are going to be needing is our cotton lining. So the best material to use for Ankara is cotton lining. So this is my stay, then this is my chantilly net, which I'm going to be using for the upper part of the dress. Then I'll be using my bias. So this is the main fabric for this tutorial, which is the Ankara fabric. So the first thing we're going to do is to cut our fabric as usual. So I went ahead to place my Ankara fabric. I folded it into two, then I placed my pattern. So after placing my pattern, I'm going to go ahead to add my seam allowance. So for the waist, I'll be using 1/2 inch. For the first panel, I'll be using 1/2 inch also. Then for the side, I'm going to be adding my sewing. I'm going to be adding 2.5 inches for the side. And don't forget that when we were drafting the pattern, I removed some parts from the pattern. Then I'll be adding whatever I remove from the pattern. I'll be adding it to the side, especially for the front. I'll be adding it for the front at the side. So for the lower part of the dress, which is our hem, I'm going to be adding 2 inches for folding, then 1/2 inch for the sewing allowance, which is going to make it 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my fabric. So for the front, I'm also going to be doing the same thing. I'll be adding the excess, whatever I remove from the first panel, I'll be adding it to the side of the front. Then I'll be adding my 1/2 inch for the sewing allowance for the others, except for the back, the center back. So for the center back, I'll be using 2 inches, which is for the zip allowance. I'll be using 2 inches for the zip allowance, 1/2 inch for the sewing allowance, then 1.5 inch for the zip allowance. So we are going to move on to cutting our lining. Now for the lining, it is also the same thing. The only difference is the 2 inches, the 2.5 inches I measured, I'm going to be folding it in twice. Then I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch on the hem, and that only happens for the lower part of the Ankara fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my panel. Now for the panel, I'm going to be using, I was supposed to cut 4, but I cut 8 instead of 4. Now the reason why I cut for 8 was because I wanted to add at the side, but it did not come out as I wanted it to be, so I ended up losing it and using just 4. That is 2 for the front panel and 2 for the back panel. I'm also going to be cutting the upper part of my dress, so I'll be using my chantilly nets to cut out the upper part. Now, if you remember, while cutting the zip allowance for the upper part, we used 2 inches, but for the chantilly net, I'm going to be using only 1/2 inch, and that is because I'm not going to be using my zipper. I'm going to be folding it in, so that is what the 1/2 inch is for. The zipper is going to start from the Ankara fabric. So here I'm going ahead to add my interfacing. So I'm going to start by joining my Ankara. Now I'll be joining only the front with the lining and the back with the lining. I'll be joining them separately. Now there are other ways at which you can actually achieve this, but this is what works for me for this video. So after joining them, I'm going to be placing my chantilly nets. Then I'll be placing the lining. Now while placing it, please always note that you are supposed to make sure that the seam for the lining and the seam for the Ankara fabric are aligning. If you don't make it align, your work is not going to be as neat as you want it to be. So all these little things are what makes our work neat. So the reason why, as you can see, I did the front first, then I did the back. Now it's because the back is, I did the back first and then did the front, and the reason why is because the back is actually easier to make than the front, so that's why I did the back first. Now for the front, you're going to first of all place your chantilly net, then you're going to sew on 1/2 inch before placing your lining. So I'm going to be placing my hemming gum at the joining of the Ankara and the lining, and that is because it is going to make the work neater while ironing. So which is actually advisable, so that your lining will not be coming up. It's going to make your lining to relax. So I'm going to go ahead and place my cup as shown. Now to place my cup, I'm going to be using my bust arm to place it. So after placing it, then I'll be using my pin to hold it together. Then what I use most of the time that works for me is hand sewing my cups to my Ankara fabric. Sewing it doesn't work for me, so I'm going to go ahead and hand tack my cup. So I'm going to be sewing my sides. I'll be sewing on the wrong side on 1/2 inch. And I'll also be doing the same thing for the back. I'm also going to be sewing on 1/2 inch. So after sewing that, we are going to move to the front. Please don't forget that while you are sewing, always make sure you are ironing, and while you are sewing, you are ironing. It's going to make your work neater. So I'm going to move to the back, to the front of my the lower part of my dress. Now don't forget that whatever you add is what you are going to be sewing. So what I added was 1/2 inch for sewing allowance, and that's what I'm going to be using to sew both the Ankara and the lining. Then after sewing, I'm going to join it at the hem. Now after joining, and while if you want to sew the side, as you can see, the 2 inches that you added for the Ankara is going to come up, which is how it is supposed to be. So now we are going to move to the back. We are going to also be sewing the back. So the next thing you are going to do here is to label, which is actually very, very important. Labeling is very, very important when it comes to pattern drafting. It's going to make your work very, very easy. So I'm going to be going ahead to label all my fabric, especially for the back. And the reason why is because, as you can see, I'm taking more of my time to label the center back, and that is because most of the time it always looks the same, and it is going to be confusing you if you don't know the difference between your center back and your second back panel. So that is the reason why I am going ahead to label it. I'm taking my time to label it. I'm also going to be taking extra time to label my lining. So I'm going to go ahead and start joining my Ankara fabric and the lining fabric. I'll also do the same thing for the lining. I'll also join it. Don't forget that we've already joined the front. Now this is the back. I'll be joining them separately. Then after joining, I'm going to go ahead and give it a good press, then bring it back to show you guys what to do next. So I'm going to be placing my back, the lower part of my back to the upper part of my back, as you can see here. And as I always say, make sure that your seams are aligning. It is very, very important. Make sure your seams are aligning. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to be pinning the two seams together before pinning it at the side. I'm also going to do the same thing for the front. I'll be pinning my seam, then I'll after pinning the seams, the two darts, then I'll be pinning my side. Then I'll go ahead and sew it on 1/2 inch. Don't forget that 1/2 inch is what we took as the sewing allowance for the waist. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and fix my zip. So don't forget that whatever you're adding is what you're removing. So what I removed was 1.5 inches. I added 2 inches, then I used 1/2 inch to sew it, then 1.5 inches for the zip allowance. So I'm going to be starting with my waist seam. To make sure that they are aligning, you pin it together with the waist seam, then you pin your zip and sew it. So this was where I realized that I forgot to add my godet to the lower part of the dress. So I went ahead to lose the lower part. I could not find the video of where I was losing it. So after losing it, I loosed it to 12 inches. That was what I used for my godet measurement. So I loosed both the Ankara fabric and the lining. Then I sewed it together as one. Then I added my chantilly net here. So after adding my chantilly net, I went ahead. You see the upper part here, I'm going to be folding it, then I'm going to be tacking it down using my hand stitching method. So now we are going to be joining the sides of our Ankara dress. Now, whatever you add for your sewing allowance is what you are going to remove. It is as simple as that. I added 2.5 inches for the sewing allowance, and I'm also going to be removing 2.5 inches. Now, don't forget that we have sewn the 1/2 inch already for joining the lining and the Ankara fabric. So what I'm going to be removing now will be just 2 inches. But of course, we are going to first of all confirm our measurement to make sure that the measurement is accurate. As you can see for the side, I added my chantilly net, but I later removed it, and that was because it wasn't giving it what the shape is supposed to give. So I had to remove it and use just 2 panels. So I'm going to move to using my bias to fold my chantilly net. So you're going to be using it for the neck, the back, and the slit at the front. You're going to first of all use it for the back, then use it for the slit at the front before joining it together with my bias for the neck. So because of the length of this video, I will not be showing you how I make the sleeve. I'm going to be posting and I'm going to be showing you in another video, because this video is too long. So I'm going to be showing you another video. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next one. If you have any questions for me, please leave it in the comment section, and I will make sure that I answer your questions or answer your questions in a video. Thank you guys. See you guys in the next one. Bye.